The 7 heavenly virtues, the opposite of the 7 deadly sins. Today I'm going to look at 7 philosophers who embody each virtue, starting with John Stuart Mill. Now he embodies kindness because he was a big fan of something known as utilitarianism. Now that's a principle that says, hey, we should do things that maximize happiness but minimize suffering, which is sort of the essence of kindness, right? He said that you can only exercise power over others if they're being a drag, or like harming people. Like when my mom takes away my Benadryl tablets because I keep tweaking out and talking to people on the walls. Anyhow, Stewart also wrote about women's rights, which is pretty progressive for his time. But he's not a perfect fit. Utilitarianism and kindness are not exactly interchangeable. Kindness to me is something personal and intimate, while utilitarianism is about calculating happiness. Like imagine me asking you for a favor and you pull up the ethics notebook and start calculating vigorously if it's worth it or not. Like, nah man, I'm okay. The virtue of chastity basically means being maidenless, or getting zero play. For chastity, we have Immanuel Kant, who embodies that virtue in a very literal sense. You see, Kant was a guy who lived by a very strict ethical code, and his views on marriage and intercourse were no different. He did not believe in relations outside marriage, and he himself never really married. So where does that leave him? Just being Immanuel Kant. Or his full name, Immanuel Can't Get Laid. Charity embodies the art of giving, and for that virtue, the guy that comes to mind is Peter Singer. Now he's an Australian moral philosopher who's really into the idea of something called effective altruism, the philosophy that asks the question, what is the smartest way to help people? He believes charity is not some nice thing you do to feel complete and self-actualized in your 40s, but an obligation. And not doing so is a moral wrong. And he does practice what he preaches by donating a fair bit of his income to charity. In a way, you can see him as the average Twitter user, but instead he actually practices what he preaches instead of purely virtue signaling. For the virtue of humility, I'm going to go with my guy Socrates, who famously proclaimed, "The only thing I know is that I know nothing." This is something we'll call Socratic humility, which is just the willingness to admit that you do not know it all, and being okay with that. The universe may be infinite, but our time here to experience it is not. And with this short time we'll spend being alive, we will not even be able to scratch the surface of all knowledge. But you know what? That's okay. Be humble in your limitations, and the rest will sort itself out. Socrates knew that. For the virtue of patience, I've probably picked the man with the most popular journal in history, Marcus Aurelius, the iconic Stoic emperor. The philosophy of Stoicism means to master what is within our control and let go what is outside of it. It is a philosophy of patience. Despite being an all-powerful emperor, Marcus Aurelius cultivated the virtue of patience within himself, and was partly the reason he was such an effective human being and leader. For the virtue of diligence, we have Confucius, the Chinese philosopher with a direct quote on it, which goes, "The expectations of life expect upon diligence. The mechanic that would perfect his work must first sharpen his tools." In fact, Confucian hard work is so popular that while researching this video, I even found this article by Forbes titled, "8 Confucius Quotes Useful to Startup Founders," which just puts the idea of finance pros vigorously reading philosophy after their morning mandatory crypto reading in my head, which was an unusual but welcomed visualization for me. Temperance is the quality of moderation. And who comes to mind in philosophy when you think of moderation? Epicurus. He's the guy who focused on a life of simple pleasures rather than luxury and overindulgence. They just manage desires and avoid pain. For him, the ideal state to live in was called ataraxia, which represents a state of inner peace or emotional equilibrium. But the meaning of Epicurean has changed in popular culture. If you pull up the definition, instead of Epicurus, you're more likely to visualize a mukbang YouTuber. It just is what it is. But if you had to pick a virtue which represents you, which one would you be? Do let me know in the comments down below. That's the 7 heavenly virtues as philosophers.